Welcome back to the video series of Chess with the Chess course, and we now move on to the lesson relative value of pieces. Well, as you know, the initial position of the chessmen resembles armies taking their post before the war bugle is sounded. So it's basically, as I told you, chess is a game, it's a war game. The bugle signals the start of battle, where we see players moving their armies forward and rushing towards the opposing forces. When they are near to each other, a hand-to-hand combat takes place, and sooner or later we are bound to see the exchange of pieces. The exchanges are done by a player after careful examination, calculations, and their knowledge of the value of the chessman. For a beginning player, this calls for understanding the value of each of the 6 chessmen. Once a player understands the value, it becomes easier to evaluate the position to decide whether or not it is good to exchange or capture a chessman. Further, the values assume great importance as it provides an idea as to who is enjoying superiority in material. Normally, the side enjoying material advantage wins the game. Through a system called relative value of pieces, points has been assigned to each of the 5 pieces excepting the king. In reckoning the relative value of the pieces, pawn, which is the weakest of all the chessmen, is to be counted as 1 unit. Accordingly, the relative value of the chessmen excepting the king can be assessed in multiples of pawns as under, in the order from weakest to strongest. It means that pawn is 1, and then stronger than pawn are the minor pieces in bishop and knight. They both are valued at 3. And then comes the rook, which is of course stronger than bishop and knight, is valued at 5 points, but weaker than the queen. Queen is the strongest of all and has been given 9 points, or is worth 9 pawns. So just let me repeat again that values are basically relative, means it doesn't remain constant, and therefore it's like counted as pawn is 1, bishop and knight 3 each, then comes rook 5, and finally the queen at 9. Let us examine each of the chessmen to find out the reason being endowed with particular points. So let us start with pawn. So pawn is the weakest unit of all the chessmen for the following reasons. We have already discussed this in detail, and let me enumerate it. It can only move 1 square at a time, with the exception of moving 2 squares from the start position. Second, it cannot move backwards. And third point, leaving apart the corner file, its capturing zone is just limited to just 1 square to his left or right. It means a pawn can control 2 squares if it is standing on any files from B to G. Let us have a look at this through the diagram here. So what do we see? This pawn basically here on E4 can control D5 and F5. It has control over 2 squares. But like if the same pawn is on any corner file, then what does it mean? It has control over only 1 square. So you see here the pawn on A4 controlling the B5 square, only 1 square. And then we move ahead. However, being the weakest unit of all does not mean that the player will give away his pawns recklessly. Remember that a pawn has been endowed with the power to promote itself. That means, like they are basically baby queens and can promote itself. So that 1 point can become 9 points. So you cannot afford to give pawns without any purpose whatsoever. Going ahead now, we come to the minor pieces now, and first we'll start with knight. So knight has been given 3 points, as I have said, and bishop also has been given 3 points. Let us understand both these pieces as to why they have been given 3 points. So we can see that knight, if we put it on an open chessboard on any of the center square, it commands 8 squares. So we can see this knight here commanding 8 squares. And now if we put the same knight in a corner square, then we see its range being reduced to only 2 squares. That means here you can see the knight on h1 only controlling f2 and g3 square. One thing we have to remember a knight, that because of its jumping ability and it can go to both the color square, though means like bishop is quicker and knight is slower, they both have been assigned 3 points. So just let me brief the salient features of the knight. A knight is worth 3 points in view of the following. It is comparatively slower in moving. For example, a knight standing on its start position needs 4 moves to reach other end of the chessboard. This we had discussed during our session on general opening theory as to why do we move knights first instead of bishop. Well, knight is a slower piece, as I said, and to reach end of the board from its start position, say like if a knight is standing on g1, then it requires 4 moves on an open chessboard. So g1 to f3 to e5 to d7 and for example to b8. Whereas in comparison, like bishop is faster, so bishop on f1 can move quickly to the last rank, say on an open chessboard, say bishop to a6 and then bishop to a8. So as we can see here, it controls only 2 squares. Now let us compare this with the bishop, and we see that bishop has control of 13 squares placed on any central square on an open chessboard. So still we are giving 3 points to the knight, as well 3 points to the bishop, because knight as compared we know can only control 8 square. But as we have seen that knight has that jumping ability and also an ability to go to either of the color, that is white and black. That is why it is on par with bishop, though it's slower and can control fewer squares when placed in an open position. Also, like the bishop is restricted to half of the board. So here you see this bishop is on a light color. It means it can only is restricted to only half of the light color square, that is 32 squares. Both have been given 3 points each. And of course, like when bishop is in the corner, then its range is reduced and can only control 7 squares from this position. So I hope you have understood as to why, though they both are been assigned 3 points each, what is the difference between these two pieces. Now we move on to rook, which is basically stronger than bishop and knight but weaker than the queen. Rook, we have learned that if we put it on an open chessboard on any of the central square, it can command 14 square, and it doesn't change even if we put the rook to a corner square. The range remains same. So it's like, therefore it has been assigned 5 points, and it's stronger than bishop and knight but weaker than the queen. And now we basically come to queen. So queen has been assigned 9 points. And now question will come to your mind as to why, because queen is basically a combination of rook and bishop. So rook is 5 points, bishop is 3, then it should make a total of 8. As to why it has been given 9 points, that appears a bit surprising. Well, we can understand this from the point of view that when bishop is standing on a light color, it can work like a light colored bishop, and when it changes to a dark color, then we find it can move like a dark color bishop. So here, in the initial position, we had seen it can move like a white colored bishop, and after moving here we can now see it can move like a dark colored bishop. And that is why, for this reason, queen has been given more powers in terms of that it's more than 8 points, been assigned 9 points for this simple reason that it can, transform itself very quickly from a light color bishop to a dark color bishop. And then we move ahead. And before I go ahead with the king, let me tell you that basically the queen and rooks, they are referred to as major pieces, and bishop and knight are referred to as minor pieces. So this is again a difference between these pieces. So in all we have 5 pieces, that is on the first row. So leaving apart king, remaining 4, 2 are major, that is queen and rook, and then 2 are minor, that is bishop and knight. And as we saw with the queen, if we have it on any of the central square, let us just go back to that position, commands 27 square, same like rook and bishop, that is rook on an open chessboard is able to control 14 square, bishop is 13, so 14 plus 13 is 27, same way for queen because it's a power of 2. But if you put the same queen in the corner, then its range reduces to 21 squares, as we have seen with the bishop, that bishop being in the center commands 13 square, but when it goes to the corner, range gets reduced and can control only 7 square. So that is the difference. Rook anywhere we had seen it's only 14 square, so 14 plus 7 it becomes 21. And now we come to the king. So basically, since king is the only chessman that cannot be captured, no value has been assigned to it. It needs to be protected in the opening and the middle game stage. However, the king assumes great power once the end game stage is reached, as its placement and maneuver often proves decisive. In certain endgames, its power is equivalent to a bishop, knight, or even a rook. Placed on an open chessboard, a king controls 8 squares around it, while in a corner it has control over just 3 squares, as you can see in this diagram. So here it has command of 8 squares around it because it can move 1 square straight like a rook or even diagonally like a bishop, forward and backward. And then now if you put the same king in the corner, well, you can see here the range gets reduced and it's only 3 squares. So we have seen it's good thumb rule for you that not to take our pieces to the corner and their value, they will not be able to function at their full powers that they have been assigned with. So it's always better to keep them centralized where they can effect maximum control, they can help. It's a combined teamwork. So putting one of your men in the corner does not help. They all have to work together in bringing out the result. And then we conclude this segment with a very important observation that having more material than your opponent does not entitle you to claim a win. The final goal is to achieve checkmate. And we say that, okay, I have got more material and I win the game, you have got lesser material. That is not the case. That are, the values are assigned just for understanding as to who is enjoying superiority. But it does not entitle you to claim a win based on that. Let us look at this very famous position with bishop e7. We see white declaring check and mate on the black king. And now let us find out how much value black is having. So here he has got queen that is worth 9, then 2 rooks that is 10, so 9 plus 10, 19. Then he has got 4 minor pieces, that is 3 each becomes 12, so 19 plus 12 is 31. And then he has got the pawns 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. and as compared to that, let us have a material count for white, and we only find that he has got 3 minor pieces worth 9, and then pawns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 9 plus 6, it's only 15. But here the material count becomes meaningless. Though black is almost double in terms of material count, checkmate ends everything. So relative value does not determine the outcome of the game. The outcome of the game is determined by what we say the finality, the check and mate. But basically it helps you in understanding the exchanges, and like also like normally if you have superiority in material, you win, but does not entitle you to claim a win based on that. Similar example here, and we see white moving his rook to d8 and giving a check to the black king, and we see that black king has no flight square, and that is his e7 square is controlled by the bishop. On g5 he cannot even capture the rook on d8 and also cannot move to d7. So how much material does he have here? It's only rook and bishop, that is 5 plus 3 8, and then he has got 7 pawns to make it up 15. And what about black? He has got a queen and rook, that is for 14, and then 2 minor pieces, bishop and knight, 6 points, so that is 20 in itself, and plus 5 pawns, 25. But still, like having so much material, here he has been checkmated, so like does not make any difference. So you have to remember these values, they are very important, and they help you in determining the correct exchanges, they help you in evaluation. But also you have to understand that you cannot claim a win on points. The final goal, as we have learned, is to achieve check and mate. With this, we conclude our session of relative value. I will be back with the last chapter in this segment, exchange of material. Bye for now.